If I told you that there was a sport that was played on an inflatable court, blended volleyball, soccer, and gymnastics together, and was all fueled by samba music, would you believe that such a sport existed? It sounds made up, right? Well, such a monstrosity actually exists, and not just in my wildest dreams. What began on the sun-drenched beaches of Brazil has been slowly but surely spreading around the world. And despite the seemingly wild blend of different sports, these all combine seamlessly together to create a high-flying, utterly electric sport that is a celebration of music, movement, and pure joy. Today, in our ongoing series about the greatest obscure sports in the world, we delve into the vibrant tapestry that is Bossaball. The history. Despite looking and feeling utterly Brazilian, in order to understand the origin story of Bossaball, we need to first understand the origin story of a Belgian, specifically a Belgian man named Philip Eijkmans. In his youth, Eijkmans was a tennis player on the national team of Belgium, so this guy was an elite athlete for a very long time. And like a lot of young folks, he liked to use his free time in a variety of fun ways, including assisting with live soccer matches and DJing at private parties. As part of this music scene, he became acquainted with a variety of musicians and artists, and because being an amateur tennis player doesn't often pay the bills, he ended up becoming the manager of several acts, including the bands Deus and Vive la Fête. In his duties as manager for Deus, he made multiple trips to Brazil in support of the band, and it was during these trips where Eijkmans became fascinated by a little-known martial art game called capoeira. It is known for its complex and acrobatic maneuvers, and it's been practiced for centuries by Afro-Brazilian people. Seeing these remarkable performances, and given his background in athletics and music, all while soaking up the vibe of Brazilian beaches, something clicked for Eijkmans. In his mind, football and volleyball and dance and music were all fusing together. And by the late 90s, now living in Spain, Eijkmans was formalizing his radical new sport, and by the early 2000s, it was ready for prime time. He decided on the name Bossaball, leveraging the word bossa from Indian Spanish, which translates roughly as style, flair, or attitude. Most English-speaking people know it best from bossa nova music, which is a samba-influenced type of Brazilian music that is now known around the world. But with so many sports and cultures smashing together in Bossaball, sorting out the rules was going to be important. And while it's not the simplest game on the planet, it's also not the most complicated to wrap your head around. And it's so worth it once you do. The rules. Bossaball is played on an inflatable court that features a trampoline on each side of the net. These trampolines are critical as they allow the players the ability to jump high enough to spike over the net. Honestly, I would just love to see a regular game of volleyball played on a court like this. That alone would be seeing. But back to Bossaball, quite obviously, it takes things a lot further. The game is played between two teams of 4 players each, and like volleyball, the goal is to get the ball to drop on the other team's side of the net. The players are not allowed to touch the net and always have to remain with at least one body part on their side of the net. To start, one player is positioned on the trampoline and the other 3 players are around the trampoline on the inflatable. The ball is then put into play by a server who has to throw or kick the ball onto the other team's side of the court. All pretty straightforward so far, right? Well, now things start to get a bit more challenging. The receiving team can make up to 5 contacts with the ball at this point before they have to get it back over the net. This differs from tennis, where you only get 1 touch, or volleyball, where you get up to 3 touches. This is made even more interesting by the fact that Bossaball differentiates between 2 different types of touches. The first is called a volley touch. This pulls in the volleyball influence and would include your lower arms, a spike, a drop shot, or other similar moves. There is also the football touch, which is a touch with any part of the body except the hands or arms. You with me so far? Okay, good, let's keep going. Of the 5 maximum contacts, the ball has to be played at least once using the football touch technique, once the second pass has been played. So it can't be exclusively volley touches. That would be too easy, and this is Bossaball we're talking about. So in a typical rally, the ball is passed around amongst teammates while an attacker jumps on the trampoline in order to gain height. Then a teammate will aim the ball towards a spot in the air where the attacker can hit it, like with a spike or a kick, and return the ball over the net to hopefully win the point. The receiving team's job is to stop this, and things continue until the ball drops and the rally is over. But when it comes to scoring, things get even more interesting. The scoring. So obviously, once the ball hits the ground, the attacking team gets a point. Or in this case, it could be points plural with an S. That's because different methods of winning a point are worth different amounts of points. And it all goes back to those two different kinds of touches, the volley and the football touches. Allow me to explain. It probably goes without saying, but it's a lot easier to control and direct a volley touch than a football touch, and hence it's a lot easier to score a point with volley touches. Bossaball adjusts for this very cleverly by awarding more points for football touches than volley touches. If you hit the ball over with a volley touch and it lands on the opponent's side, that's worth 1 point. But if you do it with a football touch like a kick, it's worth 3 points. Risk reward, baby. Bossaball has got it. But there's even more than that. You can get crazy from there. The trampoline is obviously the central piece of real estate for your opponent, so if you can get the ball to land there, it's worth even more. Drop the ball on your opponent's trampoline with a volley touch and it's worth 3 points. If you can do it with a football touch, it's worth a whopping 5 points. This means that a team can be way behind in the scoring and catch up fairly quickly with a few well-timed trampoline shots. I love it. You're never out of the game. First team to 21 points and be ahead by 2 is your winner of the set, and it's the best of 3 sets. Now you may be asking yourself, okay, cool sport, but how does music play into this? All this talk about bossa nova and samba, I haven't heard a single note played yet, but don't worry, we're getting to that. And believe it or not, it's actually led by the referees. The referees. From an officiating standpoint, there are actually 3 referees. One primary ref who stands under the net in the actual playing area, which is really cool if you ask me. The ref is right there in play, as well as 2 assistant referees. This again is super similar to volleyball. The primary referee mainly watches the net and makes final decisions, while the assistants count touches and decide whether a ball lands in or out of bounds. But in Bossaball, the primary referee is also known as the, wait for it, samba referee. And in addition to making calls, this ref also serves as sort of a master of ceremonies to hype everyone up. Usually this ref is accompanied with a whistle, a microphone, percussion instruments, you name it, anything to keep the positive vibes flowing. And of course, there's almost always a DJ spinning tunes at these games. And given Philip Eichmann's amateur DJ past, I would expect nothing less. The future of Bossaball. Being led out of Europe, it's no surprise that the sport is most popular there at present. There have been 7 international championships in Bossaball since 2005, and almost all have both taken place in Europe as well as been fielded by European teams. But the sport is becoming more global. Not surprisingly, Brazil and other South American countries have been playing Bossaball more and more, and there's actually been a surprising introduction of the sport in Middle Eastern countries like Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and Kuwait. Like a lot of group activities, the COVID-19 pandemic impacted the sport, but it continues to have a strong, supportive, and diverse community around the world. And given that it combines several hugely popular global sports and mixes it all with energetic music and a mission of positivity, I don't see why Bossaball can't become more popular as the years go on. I would love to hear your thoughts on Bossaball in the comments below. Let me know what you think of this unique sport. And as always, if there are other sports you'd like to see covered in our shared ongoing history of obscure sports, drop them in the comments below, ideally with the hashtag idea so I can find them easily. Until next time, friends, let's samba.